On today's show, we're going to be talking about the ancients' rhythm of life. We're going to take a look back to the Middle Ages and how the ancient people had more time off and celebrated more holidays or holy days than we do today. And could the old church rhythms, do you think that could be a benefit to people today? And do you think that could help with mental health? Having additional free time off, more vacations, and more social interaction. Were the ancients onto something? Now, most of the research on this subject, on just how many days off the typical peasant had, most of it is on the Western Church. But from my research, it seems to be the same with the Byzantine Empire. They too had ample amount of days off throughout the year. So could this rhythm and these celebrations, did they really enrich life, and can we learn from the ancients? That's the question I'm going to ask you. David Gold.
Well, the language around this is so telling. You talked about days off, you talked about vacation, you talked about holy days. So it is striking to me that our word holiday, of course, means holy day, which is an ancient concept. Vacation is a very modern concept, a vacant time. Holidays are not vacant. And the notion of days off, certainly for most human beings prior to our form of the modern world, the question was never whether there were days off or whether there was something called retirement. It was a question about what is the rhythm of life?
Yes.
And how does the rhythm of life invite us into a deeper relationship with our fellows? How does it connect us to those that have gone before us? And where is the rhythm of fasting and feasting? Where is enjoyment? So I'm familiar with some of the research about the number of holy days within Western medieval culture. And you're right, we looked like workaholics,
Yes.
formally in connection with that. But we have to remember that most of the people in that period were involved in agricultural work. So you never had a day off, but the rhythm changed a bit. Rhythm changed a bit. And I think that's central to this question you have about the relationship of mental health to the rhythms of your life. I think this is a really important question. I often think that the liturgical life, what I would call a liturgical life, a life that's lived deliberately in terms of rhythms that are larger than oneself, larger than one's own birthday, but has a connection to a tradition that is much larger. And where the rhythms of the liturgy are following a pattern, are cultivating within you particular kinds of dispositions, are opening for you particular kinds of opportunity for fellowship, for feasting, for fasting and feasting, and where you're not making the decision, where you're a part of something that's much larger than you. I cannot help but imagine that this is a lot healthier way to live. We have in our society here in Canada, I mean, if you think of the normal way in which time is ordered, it's really ordered by the banker's calendar and by the commercial calendar.
Yep.
Black Friday, all of the ways in which commerce orders this. Now, you and I don't have to participate in that. or we can be disciplined about how we participate in it.
Mhm.
So we're not going to change that in any kind of overt way. I can't imagine it anyways. But as part of a religious community, you do make a decision about how you're going to dance with that. So I think this is really a question of religious discipline. And I have so much regard for the Jews because they still remain quite disciplined about these things. I have so much regard for many Muslims who also are very disciplined about these matters. Disciplined during the day, and disciplined during the week, and disciplined during the various months of the liturgical year. Now, you and I have been given this in our Eastern Christian Church. We have a very rich liturgical calendar, and it has many layers to it. It has a variety of disciplines around it, and the degree to which you take those on and live those, I think, offers you a substantial amount of freedom. Freedom from the call of commerce, freedom from the preoccupation with your cell phone, freedom from all of those sorts of things that tend to devour time. You know, we have a teaching. We have these teachings about the guardianship of the eyes, the guardianship of the ears, the guardianship of the mind, the guardianship of the heart. We need to translate this into modern terms. I think, for example, anybody within this tradition, within the Christian East, needs to think very seriously about how they limit their relationship to the internet, limit their relationship to their cell phone, limit their relationship to entertainment. Not because those things are bad, but because they deprive you of what is much better. And what is better is human incarnational relationships. What is better is being in the presence of the liturgical life, where you are cultivating, where the whole community and the tradition is cultivating within you a much larger landscape of meaning than any human being themselves could conjure up, and in which you as a person are affirmed in your dignity in a remarkable way. The social dimension of this is so significant as well. The possibility of engaging people in serious conversation instead of simply casual relationships. That's all part of what a liturgical life shapes so you can enter into that. Doesn't mean you're going to, but it does give you the opportunity to do that. You know, within Jewish Torah teaching, on the Sabbath, you don't do any work. And God rested on the Sabbath. It comes from Genesis. This is a marvelous discipline. What it does is it creates time for being. You see, part of our addiction, and I say our because God knows I've got it as much as most people, in our culture, we are really addicted to doing. We're addicted to thinking our doing is our being. And our doing isn't our being. Our being is created by God. So the Jewish tradition has an enormous sort of theology of joy, which is really focused on all of life, but also particularly on the Sabbath. The Sabbath when you come together, the Sabbath when you limit your travel, the Sabbath when you prepare everything ahead of time, so that you can simply enjoy being together, resting in being. I suspect that most mental illness, Vladimir, I don't know, but I suspect that the vast majority of mental illness would be eased if one could only come to a place where you rested in your being and where you were not preoccupied with your doing or with what has been done or with what ought to be done, but you could rest in your being. So the liturgical life in Jewish Christian tradition is really a psychotherapy around being, and is offering us festive times, times of leisure, because it is only with those times that creativity can exist. Creativity does not exist in push, 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 push. It exists and it arises out of the ease of being when we are at ease and to some extent at one with God.